But like you, Ed, I do use a lot of buses. I do have individual tracks into a group bus. Now, as you are a drummer, I'm quite interested to know what's on your drum bus. Very quickly, what's on your drum bus?
So my go-to for the drum bus is the Tone Empire Loch Ness V2, which is a great plugin because it's a... I'm not entirely sure what type of compressor it is. It's just a very good one for drums.
It's an 1176. I'm pretty sure it's 1176.
Okay. And then it's got this saturator, which they call crunch, which is a great word for it. So it adds some gritty character, which would make sense it being an 1176 because that's what that unit does. Add some gritty character to the sound. And do you know what? At this point, I might just use a stock EQ in Logic just to get out whatever resonant frequencies, because I can really notch those and get any very specific frequencies that are resonating. Sometimes there's a top end harmonic going off, or there might be a resonant on the kick or the toms or something. But I usually take out about 500 hertz, and then I will leave it. I might add in a little bit of reverb at that point, but my approach to this is about to change because I've just got a load of 500 series, as I keep mentioning. I actually intend to bypass the plugins at this stage at some point and go out to some analog EQs and compressors. I feel like that will add a further richness to my drum sound.
It's very interesting because I take a different approach. In a sense, it's the same approach, but I do a lot more on my drum bus. I thought your drum bus was going to be like really like extensive. I do the same thing as you, where I've got a compressor. That's the first thing on the drum bus, just to glue it all together. But I use the UED API 2500. Now, the reason I use that is because I don't know what it does. I've not looked into it enough. It adds a little bit of width for me, which I don't know if it's openness or width, maybe a bit of depth, one of the two. But it seems like there's a bit of a phase shift going on in there. And to me, the kick has this little bit of more of a click in it. And I like my kicks to be quite clicky in a mix because, again, it's great having that kind of low-end extension that's, funnily enough, Warren, on my mix feedback, one of my mixes, he was like, I maybe feel you're missing a bit of 30 hertz or 35 hertz in there. And he was right, and I understand certain things I maybe could have been doing better. But I do like the API as that compressor as a tone box, just brings out the kick a little bit more.
And that compressor is now available, the UAD version is available on their Spark subscription as a native
you're right. So
plugin. But if you don't want the subscription, Tone Empire do an amazing version of the 2500.
Yep. And I was using that for quite a while. What's that called again? It's quite interesting because it's an SSL bus compressor, but I think it's got like the color of an API. It's a hybrid. It's SSL and API. It's Model 5000. That's what it is.
Yep.
And that is great. The way I used to use it was I'd compress quite heavily on the drum bus. Or no, did I use it on the drum bus? No, I used it on kick and snare. I would compress quite heavy, maybe like 8 dB, but I would use the mix knob, and I would just use the mix knob just to bring it in. So again, I was compressing, but I was just bringing a little bit into the signal. And then I'm kind of moved on to the API, which I just think is awesome. And then after that, there's no EQ on the drum bus. What I do is I have got I think after that it's the Arboreal Pimax, which is awesome. There's a video on my channel, shameless plug, don't give a shit. Watch it. It's awesome. It's like 20 odd quid. It's the Sonics inflator, but what the Sonics inflator wishes it was. It's not just like the Sonics inflator is just, I get annoyed because I see it used all the time, and it's just an aliasing mess. I don't get it. Right, I don't get it.
It's a harmonic introducer, isn't it?
It's just a wave shaper. That's all it is. But it's a very old plugin where Pimax is taking the saturation algorithm like of the inflator, but it's giving you like multiband options. It's got oversampling in there, and there isn't any audible aliasing in there. And what it does perfectly, which is what a lot of people use inflator for, is to use certain type of saturation that kind of gives you a bit of soft clipping. It's not hard clipping. It's like soft clipping where you could get more perceived loudness out there, where you're just kind of shaving off your peaks, your drums, but you're getting that little bit of extra perceived loudness. And Pimax does it perfectly. I use it on kick, I use it on snare, and I use it on the drum bus as well. So I don't know, tell a lie, I stopped using it on kick because I realised that that's where my low-end extension was being lost a little bit. So use it on snare, but definitely on drum bus, right? If you want your drums to be louder, especially when putting it through a limiter, use Pimax and you will get a punchier sound even when it's been limited. It actually sounds better through a limiter. Then after that, I use the Acustica Audio Diamond Transient, which is awesome. Like I fell in love with that plugin as soon as I tried it. Anything that Luca Pretolesi touches at Studio DMI with Acustica is honestly, it's gold. And what that does is it's based on a DBX. It's like a transient enhancement thing. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's awesome. And I normally just stick on Luca's drum preset. And again, it just kind of gives the drums this extra heft and weight and overall punch while still getting louder drums, even when you're hitting it hard with a limiter. And then I think that's it. I think it's just those plugins. What's your thoughts on clipping? Because I've been speaking to a lot of engineers, and I have been clipping transients a lot more in terms of perceived loudness. And I actually feel that if you start, like if you use like a soft clipper on kick, snare, drum bus, which is essentially what Pimax is doing, is like soft clipping, and there's maybe some elements of clipping in Diamond Transient. But I find that when you clip your transients, especially when you're going into the limiter's timing is a little bit more consistent. Have you used it or tried out clipping in terms of like your drums?
I haven't. I have used the Waves Transient Designer Smack Attack, which is interesting, but I'm in two minds about it because this is one of those plugins or this kind of transient designing is one of those processes that I think is potentially a good tool to have. I'll be honest, it's not something I've explored massively because surely carefully dialed in compression is going to largely do a similar job.
No, try it. Honestly, try some soft clipping. I was like you. I was like, nah, I've got compression. Like I've already compressed it. The clipping just does something else. And it makes, see, I had to get another engineer to explain it to me. And he was like, Paul, he went, see when you clip, Paul, it just makes everything more consistent, right? Your hits are way more consistent. And because those hits are more consistent, it means your limiter's timing is more consistent. And when your limiter's timing is more consistent, it just sounds better and it sounds punchier, even when you're limiting quite hard. Try it out. For anybody that's not using clipping, just try it out. If it's not for you, don't do it. But there's cheap clippers out there. A really good one is SIR, Standard Clip. Try it out. If you've not tried it out, try it on kick, snare, drum bus, bass.
All right.
I use Pimax for a lot of soft clipping.
Interesting.
Honestly, Pimax is cheap. Try it. If you want to make things louder, even when they're being limited, and you just want more like perceived loudness, Pimax. Try some soft clipping as well. Paul, third tip of the week for you there.
So I think we're both on the same wavelength of bus mixing largely, and then working down to fine tune each individual channel. And you brought up a good point about instrument buses and then the two bus being separate. Something I've done, which is so helpful, is basically have a lead vocal bus